everyone, it's Shane Kanto, your Wasteland Reviewer, and welcome to the Wasteland, my weekly show where I take a deep dive into a particular film, and this is a big one. Steven Spielberg and Raiders of the Lost Ark, or aka Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark, because why the hell do you have to change the name afterwards? But just throw Indiana Jones in front of it. But this time, have my buddy Adam here joining us. So Adam, thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me back. Always good to be here.
And before we hop into our three segments for today, if you'd like to shamelessly plug anything, go right ahead.
Just my letterboxd, Kerbryder, Kerbryder, is where you'll see me most. Very prolific on there. I'm not as prolific as you, Shane, but I'm getting up there.
Well, what's funny is I didn't realize I'm such a topic of conversation among SiftPop people in like the past 24 hours. I'm just sitting here.
The celluloid monster.
When everybody... I was like, how do I respond to this? And I thought I would decide to respond with the silliest way possible. Because everybody just started posting their 2021 lists. And I've seen like 765. And somebody said, I'm like a machine built to consume celluloid. And I'm just like, celluloid, nom, 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 nom. And that's it. Just left that there and just wait.
Yeah, I had a good old cackle at that. And I was formulating a response. And I was like, no, I'll leave it. I
think most people just left it and just like continued different conversation. Because like at that point,
better.
I feel like if I shared my list, it would have just been like, well, now I'm just like whipping it out and just being like, well, what are you gonna do about it?
Yeah, here it is on the table.
There we go. But that is not what we're here to talk about today. We're here to talk about Raiders. But if you haven't seen the show or listened to the show before, we have three segments. We start off with coming attractions, which we'll talk about coming attractions for the release of June 17th. I know here in the US, there's a couple of films trickling in throughout the week on like Netflix with Jennifer Lopez has a new film coming out called Halftime, and HBO Max has like the new Father of the Bride. And then this is not the one that I was going to talk about, but huge recommend to go check out Mad God, which is a crazy stop motion fantasy from Phil Tippett, who did all the stop motion on like RoboCop, worked on Jurassic Park, stuff like that. He's been making this movie for literally 30 years. And it's just like, it is crazy. But this is a pretty packed week with a variety of films. There's one big one, which I know you are excited about, Adam. So what's the film that you're most excited about?
Look, out of the list that's coming out, and of the few that will probably hit my shores here, Lightyear. Lightyear will be the one I'd be most keen to see, which probably most people seeing this would agree, I imagine.
Yeah.
I think when it was first announced, people were like, why? Like, why are they making this? Like, how is this even going to work? But when we get a bit of the backstory that Buzz Lightyear is actually based off a TV show, it kind of makes a lot of sense. And, having Chris Evans will get people through the doors as well, bums on seats. So, I think I'm keen. If my kids are a bit younger, I'd probably go see it a bit sooner, but I don't know when I'll get to see it, but I am keen to see it, absolutely.
This 30-year-old right here seeing an opening night before I leave for my honeymoon. So,
priorities.
So I'm like, I have to check this out before I leave, right? Because I don't want to wait 2 weeks to see this. I had a similar like, why? And then I saw that initial Starman David Bowie teaser trailer. I'm like, oh, yeah, now I have my attention. And then like we got more of the story, and like I was like this much upset that Tim Allen wasn't in this, because I just love him.
Yeah.
Like I get it though. He's perfect as Buzz the toy because he's so obnoxious and just like so dense. But I love Chris Evans, and I think he'll do a great job in this. And I got infinitely more excited when I found out Taika Waititi was in this too.
I didn't realize. Okay.
Yeah, he's one of the other astronauts. And then that cat, though, when it's like, how many years have we been gone? It's like, I will check. Meow, 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 meow. I lost it. The first time I watched that trailer, I'm just like, oh my God.
It'll be right. It'll be good.
That robotic cat's going to steal the show. But it looks intense and crazy and tons of action. I'm like, okay. And from what I could tell from the initial reactions at the premiere are very positive. So I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, good. Yeah, good. But it is Pixar, right? Like Pixar are doing it officially, aren't they? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, that should sell your ticket there with just that name, I think.
Yeah, and it's refreshing to see them back in a theater after.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll be happy about that.
Soul, Luca, Turning Red was them too.
Turning Red.
Yep.
Yeah, Turning Red went straight to Disney.
I had to take a second. I'm like, was that just Disney animation? Sometimes it's hard to realize which one's which now because, like, before it's just like big difference in quality, and at least recently it's been a lot closer.
It has, yeah.
But Lightyear looks great. There's a lot of interesting smaller films coming out, especially in streaming services. I do really highly recommend Cha Cha Real Smooth. I got to get a screening of that from Cooper Rafe, who recently did the film Shithouse that came out in 2020. And just get a kick out of saying that. And it's the title. So what are you going to do? And then also Brian and Charles, which I got to see, which is delightful. But I can't help but pick Official Competition only because I am such a huge fan of Antonio Banderas. And watching this trailer, which I've seen like a good 6 or 7 times already, I never get tired of it. It just has great energy. Penelope Cruz and Antonio Banderas. I just like they seem like such an absurd group of like artists. And I feel like I'm just going to have such a blast watching these people on screen. So I'm excited about that one.
Cool. There's on the Netflix one, Spiderhead, that we were discussing as well with Joe Kosinski directing from recent fame. Yeah.
Everybody on the Joseph Kosinski train because of Top Gun Maverick. Which
look, he's sneaky good. He's if you look at the movies he's directed, he's pretty good. Because
like stuff. Tron Legacy and Oblivion, I don't think either of the issues are in the direction, at least for me.
No,
I feel like it's a lot more script stuff. And he definitely got a good script handed to him with Top Gun Maverick. It's really interesting seeing the creative forces of Tom Cruise, Christopher McQuarrie, and Joseph Kosinski coming together.
Absolutely. I know.
For a second, I'm like, why isn't Christopher McQuarrie directing Top Gun Maverick? And then I saw he wrote it. And I'm like, oh, well, he's involved somehow.
Yep.
Yeah. Like him and Tom
Cruise I think him and Cruise are best mates now. Yeah, absolutely.
That's because
I think he's already busy with the
2 Mission Impossible movies. So.
That's right. Yeah.
But the main attraction for this week and why we're here is continuing my journey through Spielberg. And I'm excited because this is like prime Spielberg territory now, minus 1941. Got Jaws, Close Encounters, 1941, and then back to Raiders.
Bit of a blip. Yeah.
Which is funny because I actually recorded my E.T. episode with my wife earlier. So doing a lot of stuff this weekend trying to get ahead of things. But I don't know if I need to explain what the plot of Indiana Jones and the Raiders of the Lost Ark is, but we got Indiana Jones, who's famed archaeologist, adventurer, and teacher, who apparently a lot of his female students have the hots for. To the one scene, which we'll get there. Because like every single scene in this movie is just memorable at this point. And I can't even tell you how many times I've watched this at this point because I'll get into it. But I like to start because like Indiana Jones is trying to find the lost Ark of the Covenant with the 10 Commandments in it. And you know who wants them? Those Nazis. Darn Nazis. The greatest villains in movie history. Because who wouldn't hate a Nazi? Interesting times. But
And
Adam,
the only other Nazis.
yeah, those Nazis.
And Donald Trump. Good people on both sides.
It's an interesting time to live in. Now, Adam, what interests you in coming on for Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Man, it's Raiders of the Lost Ark. Honestly, it's peak Spielberg. It's an iconic movie for so many reasons. A lot of them being what you just said. Every scene is memorable. Every scene is fascinating. Just so much going on all the time. And I actually just happened to watch the making of before we met this morning, and even the tale of how it all came to be, and there's some really fascinating stories and how this was made, and just how it was some stuff happened on the fly when they made it. It's just a really interesting movie. So answering your question, it's Raiders of the Lost Ark. I couldn't had to put my hand up to join.
That would have been simple enough, honestly. It's just like, it's Raiders. Why wouldn't you want to talk about this?
Yeah, that's right. I could have had a really short answer there.
But, I'd definitely be interested to hear a little bit about what you learned from that making of, because I feel like, Spielberg obviously had some challenges with some of his earlier films, like Jaws, obviously iconic. Shark didn't want to work. You do? Don't show the shark. And build suspense instead.
Yeah.
And this is, I feel like, for somebody who is the age that I am and who didn't grow up and isn't old enough to have seen original serials and stuff like that, this is the most iconic adventure film. It is this is it.
Yeah.
This is the blueprint that everybody hopes to follow at this point. Because I feel like this is one of those pitch perfect films that's just and it's sneaky good directing wise. I feel like a lot of people could just take it for granted.
It's incredible. Yeah. Some of the choices Spielberg makes they're mind blowing, and and they've been replicated time and time again and taken over. And you'll see it all through. If you haven't seen Raiders and you go and watch it, you'll realize scenes from movies that you do love, or The Simpsons. You go, that's where that's from.
There you go.
Where that's from. Yeah.
I do have a fun little what if to start off, because it always seems like Harrison Ford is everybody's second choice for things. And he obviously, George Lucas had a fight for him for Star Wars, because the studio's just who? And obviously rest is history, because he's Han Solo. And this was going to be Tom Selleck. Yeah. Which, Adam, what are your thoughts on how Tom Selleck would have made this different?
Well, just watching the making of before this, Spielberg when they were casting him, Spielberg went to Lucas and said, "What about Harrison?" This is before I think they cast Tom Selleck, and George just immediately dismissed it. He said, "I don't want him to be my Bobby De Niro like he is with Scorsese. I don't want him to be in every movie I ever make." So that's really the reason he didn't want him. And then, obviously they cast Tom Selleck. They show some screen tests, even with Matheson, Tim Matheson. Is it Matheson? He was also in the running.
Yeah, well, that makes sense. I guess after 1941.
Okay, is he in that? Yeah. Well, it was actually going to be Tom Selleck and Sean Young. And their screen test was really good. They were down to play. They were going to be it. But then once Tom Selleck couldn't do it, Spielberg he got Harrison in the end. And then he wanted Karen Allen because he liked her in Animal House. So how would it be with Tom Selleck? I was thinking that after I watched it and I was making a couple of tea, I was thinking, how would that have changed Tom Selleck's career, and how would that be in a different universe? Then I don't think it would have been as good. I really don't think it would have been as good. And this is going to sound stupid, but the mustache would have aged it. Tom Selleck's mustache would not have. I don't know why I just think of this, but I just don't. I think that would be the main part. I don't think he has the on-screen charisma that Harrison Ford definitely does. Like Harrison Ford is one of the all-time screen icons now.
Well, and I watched a lot of Magnum PI growing up. I will admit, because
Yeah, me
my
too.
mom's a huge fan. My mom was Selleck, which is why she continues to watch Blue Bloods for like 12 years because she wants her Tom Selleck. But like Tom Selleck is more of like a macho kind of actor than Harrison Ford is. And what works about Indiana Jones, which is why Kingdom of the Crystal Skull doesn't work, is because he is a vulnerable hero.
Yeah.
He's very vulnerable. Yeah. He gets his ass kicked all the time. And they show him very insecure. His whole thing with the snakes, or him like running across the field, screaming like, Jock, start the plane! Like pleading. Yeah. And
well, like, some continuity errors in that scene. Doesn't matter.
We'll get there. But it's like, it's so interesting because it's such an iconic introduction, right? It's building the tension. Also, Alfred Molina.
Yes.
Nice little role at the beginning of this movie.
Yeah. And his first film.
Yeah. He does so well with that small role, too.
Yeah.
But it's the whoosh, and then slowly walking out of the shadows like, ooh.
Yeah.
Jones. And it's so funny because like at the beginning here, he just seems like this ultimate badass character. And then as you get to know who Indiana Jones is, it's like there's a lot of fragility here. And like he gets beat up a lot and he's vulnerable and he's okay being vulnerable. And like that's why he works so well in Blade Runner. And there's like a Han Solo's all swaggering, but you can see through it. Like, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Like, he cares.
There's a humanity to Harrison that he puts on screen.
Exactly.
And from what George Lucas was saying is that he came up with this idea of Indiana Jones and Star Wars at the same time, pretty much. I think even Indy before, but couldn't get funding for it. And he was just saying that the character, he just wanted to be one of those matinee idols, but he was always in over his head, which is what you were talking about. His vulnerability is that they always put him in situations where he's just in over his head straight up, like but he's so determined to do the right thing, and that's what puts him there.
And it's just Harrison Ford. It's like it's hard to unsee at this point him being Indiana Jones, and it's just like. I am so excited for Last Crusade, my episode, because like I love that movie so much. And this is like the perfectly well structured, just all the way through adventure. And it's so great. And it sets up and like obviously like this movie is how many years old? Spoil a little bit. All the way up to the end, it's just like Indy isn't really the one that does the action to defeat these Nazis either. They kind of do themselves in. But and it's like, and it's interesting that that's an interesting choice for like your hero to be like a bystander, but he's challenged too.
Yeah.
And he chooses the right thing. So like you get to
absolutely.
Like, keep your eyes closed, and then you have one of the most horrifying things not in a horror movie ever put on screen.
Yeah. Spielberg knows how to make horror, to be honest. Like even in that scene in the Well of Souls with the skeletons, and there's a big python like that fat coming out of a skull, out of the mouth of one of those skeletons, and that's straight from that's horror. That's proper horror. Spielberg has that in his blood for sure.
Well, and I talked about a little bit with Close Encounters and E.T. He tricks you with horror elements. Because he makes you think that there potentially could be malevolent desires and motivations in these aliens, but it doesn't turn out that way, and that's why it's
Yeah.
such a great reveal when, especially in Close Encounters. But like with this, there's scary elements. He definitely notches them up in Temple of Doom too, was
Yeah, he
considerably
does.
darker and also considerably sillier in this movie, all at the same time. But like this, just from the opening sequence, that is like one of the most iconic scenes in film.
One of the best cold opens of all time.
Absolutely.
Like, it's phenomenal. Yeah.
They still have rides at Disney World based around, or Universal, I guess.
Probably Universal.
Whichever one is. I was there once. But it's like, that is such an iconic thing with the big boulder and everything. It's like, this is funny because like growing up playing like Crash Bandicoot games, I'm like, there's Indiana Jones all over this.
Yeah. Interesting story behind that boulder too, actually, in the making of how that came about. Basically Spielberg said to the props guy, like, I want to be, what if, because they were filming it, and then it was kind of a late decision. It was like, what if we had this big boulder chasing him? And the guy goes, yeah, hold my beer. And he comes back and he said he built this boulder, which was way bigger than Spielberg was imagining, but he loved it. And then they said, well, why don't we just they had to actually rebuild the set and make it 50 feet longer so they could have a longer chase, basically.
Yeah.
And it was actually a dangerous thing because it was still a light fiberglass thing, but still a lot of safety precautions around it because it was still heavy and could hurt people. So, yeah, that was really interesting.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, did they explain in the making of why George Lucas didn't direct it and why Spielberg did?
There's a couple of different reasons. They didn't explain it specifically. George, I don't think he wanted to because he was just making Star Wars. He was busy making Star Wars because Empire came out in 1980, right? And then you obviously had Return of the Jedi coming in 83.
Yeah.
So he just didn't have the time, but he was on camera for a couple of times in the second unit, apparently, during Raiders, the time he was there. And there was a scene that they were talking about in the Well of Souls with all the snakes. And there was 2,000 snakes they got initially, and Spielberg was looking at them and going, this isn't enough. We need like 7,000 more snakes. And the guy's like, all right, we'll grab you some. And the guy who was the wrangler said, at that time, we was like, we can do anything you want, Steve. And so he was in a mad scramble. And they brought all these snake handlers across from Europe, added all these different snakes in to make it look like it was full. And George Lucas was like, Spielberg was so adamant to get that right. He said, I'm glad he made it because I'm too lazy a filmmaker to have done that, to put that effort in. And we're like, yeah, we've seen the prequels, George. Like, it was such an appropriate line where it's like, yeah, that's so right. Like, there's so much laziness in those prequels. Like, it just cements everything.
If it's one thing, is Steven Spielberg is not a lazy filmmaker. He goes out of his way to get what he needs to. And I don't think he gets enough credit for being like a really high quality auteur filmmaker. Like, you watch his films and he's technically amazing. And
West Side Story is evidence of that. That is technically astonishing movie.
Mm-hmm. And I feel like this film is really elevated by that technical prowess because everything is pitch perfect. It's super well made. And just like, talking about some of those choices that he made to make it work the best. And because that scene wouldn't have worked as well if it didn't seem like the whole entire floor was moving. And, and he just rolls over and it's just like, snakes. Why did it have to be snakes? And like Harrison Ford's so perfect with that. And then that shot of it falling down and then just panning across all the snakes, and you're just like, yep.
It's ominous, right? Like, it's a frightening. And again, I thought that's those horror elements coming in, the tension building and the holy shit. I mean, a dark hole with just some torches.
Yeah.
And snakes. There was a problem with those snakes, actually. It was spent quite a bit on it in the making of that. The fire repels the snakes in the movie, right? But when they were making it, the snakes just wanted warmth. They were actually being attracted to the fire, so they because the snakes were cold and they, want to be warm, so they're actually coming towards it. And no one on the set was even scared of snakes. They were actually standing in the middle of all these things. Harrison was picking them up. Steven Spielberg was just picking them up, and he's actually talking to one, saying, "Why are you attracted to this fire? I need you to be scared of it." And then he puts the snake down. And it was great. It's
it warms my heart a bit that Spielberg's not a Kubrick, because I feel like Kubrick would have found out what Harrison Ford was actually afraid of and would have put them there.
Yeah, probably.
It's kind of asshole he was.
Harrison Ford was saying in it, said, luckily I'm not scared of bugs and snakes and rats, thankfully, and those are all the things he dealt with in those 3 movies, right?
Yeah,
he said, I'm not scared of those.
And, Lawrence Kasdan, like this script, he has some amazing scripts. Like,
he wrote it by hand. It's written in hand. Because he's saying, because it was before computers, I didn't know how to type because I made too many mistakes. He said I only really started typing scripts when computers came about and I could remove an error. All handwritten. It was like this fat, the original script. Phenomenal. Yeah, that blew me away, and just all this yellow legal paper. It's just crazy.
Because Lawrence Kasdan did, he wrote Empire too.
Empire.
So he was having quite a time here. And he's done some of his own films, directing and stuff like that. I'm a big fan of The Big Chill. It was Silverado, right? Yeah, I watched that sometime last year and enjoyed that quite a bit. And like, obviously they brought him back. Like, he wrote Force Awakens, and he wrote on Solo, a Star Wars story. And, he's had such an interesting career. And this movie, like I keep saying it, directed pitch perfect, written pitch perfect. Like, this does everything it needs to. And I love, because like, you have the cold open, you switch to him going to school. What way to set up what kind of reputation he has at school, where they have that one young woman in the front just like closes her eyes and just says "love you" across them, and his reaction is just because
but then the guy when they all leave, the guy walks out and leaves an apple on his desk really awkwardly.
That's great. It's funny because my wife Jess is like, "How would you react if you had a professor that looked like Harrison Ford?" I'm like, right. None of my professors look like Harrison Ford when I went to college. And it's one of those kinds of things where it's just like, makes sense. And I don't know why I thought about this so much more this time, but Denholm Elliott as Marcus Brody, he's quite different in this movie compared to Last Crusade. Because I feel like they Flanderize him a little bit for like plot.
He's a bit of a he's a bit bumbling in The Last Crusade, isn't he?
Yeah, and like I love him in that too. I think he has a blast too playing him that way. But like he's much more like straight-laced in this, and like a good like addition on the screen. And I think one of the things that I love so much about this film is like the supporting cast too. Because like, my God, Paul Freeman as Belloc.
Yeah, he's great.
He is so perfect.
He got hired because of his eyes. Spielberg liked his eyes. Like, he could look through Harrison Ford because he has those piercing blue eyes. Because he was actually talking about how halfway through, Spielberg just cast him, and he was like, and then apparently got a bit scared. Paul Freeman was on holidays in France or something, and he had to fly back to England to prove to Spielberg he could do a French accent. He said he grew up and said, I've always done accents. And he was in there for 10 minutes and went back on his holiday, basically. Met with Spielberg, did a French accent and left again. It was like, okay, that's all good.
And Belloc is so perfect because, like, it's so interesting because, like, he's so easily hateable. And then you have that whole entire scene with him and Marion, too, which is so interesting. How, like, Karen Allen and Paul Freeman play off of each other in that scene. And you're almost like...
when they're drinking.
Yeah. And just like...
all improv. That's all improv.
That's great. Also, fun little facts is the fact that Paul Freeman is also Ivan Ooze, the Power Rangers movie.
Oh, for real? Okay.
Yeah.
I didn't know
And
that.
he's also part of the incredible cast of Hot Fuzz and all the amazing
Is he?
cameos that all the villagers are, because he's the priest that like pops the guns out of his sleeves. It's like, can we all just get along? And starts like guns are blazing. Because him and the inspector from Wicker Man are both like the original Wicker Man, not like Nick Cage.
Yep.
The original Wicker Man are both in Hot Fuzz, and it's so great seeing like those little cameos. But like, he's a talented actor, and I wish I knew him for more things than just Raiders, Ivan Ooze, and his small role in Hot Fuzz. But I have to say, personal favorite of mine is being a humongous legend, Lord of the Rings fan. I'm trying to get to a particular place. John Rhys Davies.
John. Yeah.
Which, it's so funny. I love Sama so much in this and Last Crusade. He is one of my favorite supporting characters.
Very good.
Because like Gimli's my favorite character in Lord of the Rings, and he just has this way about him, and just
he's got a great voice, right?
Yep, and just
originally supposed to be Danny DeVito.
Oh
Danny
my
DeVito
God.
was number one choice because in the script, he's a 5'2" skinny guy, which Danny DeVito has never been skinny. But I don't think he could get away from Taxi, the TV show that he was doing, because they couldn't make the days work. So then I had to.
So what you're saying is television ruined all their plans.
Yeah, like, can you imagine this? Can you imagine Danny DeVito as Salah? Like, oh, God. Look, I love Jonathan Davies as well because he did one of my all-time favorite sci-fi series, Sliders, and he's awesome in that.
John Rhys Davies is like 6'2". Like, he's a big dude.
Yeah, he's a big guy. Yeah, he's a big dude. Yeah.
And just his big booming voice and him doing a little song and dance at one point, and some of his line readings, like the whole bad dates, and just like
bad dates.
It's so perfect.
He says in the making of, there's a line he always gets asked, is that snakes, you go first. There's a line when they're in the Well of Souls or something, and he says, snakes, you go first, or something. And he said people always ask him to say that line.
That's great, because like honestly, some of my favorite lines of his are from Last Crusade, because like they named you after the dog, and just his bellowing laugh afterwards. And he is such a great like addition here, because this film knows when to be serious, it knows when to be lighthearted, it has humor, and like obviously one of the funniest things is, you know, like the whole bazaar and the chase and everything, and the guy with the sword swing, and just like it's like, nope, done, goodbye.
You know the story behind that scene, don't you?
It's because he was sick, right, and couldn't do the actual fight, or that was the.
Yeah, it wasn't just Harrison that was sick. Everyone, the whole crew was sick because they ate at some hotel.
Oh no!
Because they actually talk about it. Because even today, George Lucas hates it. He still wants it. He'd love to. He wanted it to be the original big fight. It turned out to be an awesome moment. Like, great problem solving again by Spielberg, one of the best problem solvers of all time. But he was saying that because he was so busy, he would just eat. He would just have meals from a can. He would just even eat like cold meals from a can. He was the only one in the entire production that didn't eat at the hotel.
Oh my God!
Everyone. Jonathan Rhys Davies actually said there's a deleted scene where he's up against a tree and a Nazi is about going to shoot him. And Spielberg, he was actually adamant he had cholera, Jonathan Rhys Davies. And Spielberg directed him to squat a bit so he was more in the eye line of the Nazi. And he said as he bent over, just shat himself in front of 200 people on set. Just everywhere. He said, I did not care. I was so sick. I just bent over, and as soon as I bent over, it just. And then they cut the bloody scene. That's great.
Oh no!
Yeah.
Oh, that. You know what? That's the magic of filmmaking. Because, like,
Yeah.
you know, the sword fight would have been really cool and exciting, but like, it's hard to beat that moment.
It's a great moment. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
like, that helps reinforce who Indy is. Because it's just like, why would he go through all the bells and whistles of having this giant sword fight where he's just like, oh, I have a gun.
Absolutely. Yeah, and at the end of the day, if they didn't do that today, we'd be going back. At the time, it would have been fine if they did the whip scene. But now we'd be looking back, going, "Why didn't you just shoot him? Why did we do?" Like, that's the way we did it. So
exactly,
but we get the fist fight at the end on the plane. So we still.
I was just going to say there would have been a cinema sins just like, why didn't you just shoot him?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
100%.
Yeah.
And then he gets the crap beaten out of him by giant Nazi. Oh my god.
Yeah.
That's brutal. Like, that's a thing, because like,
it is.
There's moments, and like, not to go off on too much of a tangent, but like, one of the things that, because I literally just watched Jurassic World Dominion today, was there felt like there was no stakes or suspense or like danger.
Yeah.
It's like, you feel like Indy's gonna get the life beaten out of him in the scene, and Harrison Ford plays it so well. He's bloodied and beaten, and just that moment where he sees the propeller coming, he's like, like, the guy just like, and it's just like, oh my, like,
sorry to keep bringing that up, but that scene was also completely made up on the spot because it was storyboarded. It was supposed to be 2 hits. It was supposed to be really quick and done, but Spielberg wanted to make it like, he just made it longer, and he ended up filming it over a few days in 60 different shots. But that scene we were talking about where the propeller is coming and Indy's on the ground, the plane was actually built for the movie because it was actually not a real plane, but it was a planned plane apparently. But it actually ran over his leg and blew his ACL out in his knee, that actual scene. And then he was in Tunisia. He said, I don't want to go to a doctor in Tunisia. We'll just get on with it. Just put some ice on it. And then he made the rest of the movie. And that's really interesting scene. And the stuntman was sick that day. So the guy that's in the plane, who gets hit in the head with the blocks, the chocks from the plane, that's Frank Marshall, like the producer, Frank Marshall, that's in the plane, because they couldn't find anyone. He said, I've spent 3 days in this 104-degree cockpit with the lid on. He said, I'm sure the stuntmen were actually deliberately sick there.
He's like, I'm sick today. I can't come in.
Yeah.
Oh, and you know what follows that sequence too is that amazing chase with the cars
the truck
and everything,
chase.
And that
I love that.
Octane and Indy is so heroic, and there's so many moments of danger of him like right up against the wheel. And all those things, like
underneath.
Mm-hmm.
Fun fact: Spielberg didn't direct any of that. That was second unit. He said there was the only time I gave everything to the second unit. Michael Moore, the second unit director, did the whole thing. It was all storyboarded though, apparently. But but Spielberg didn't, because he was doing other parts of the movie. So
I know one part that we kind of have glossed over, and going back a little bit, but like Catherine Allen's Marion, she has a great intro too.
Oh yeah, I love that scene so much in the bar. Yeah,
with the whole drinking and stuff like that, and beating that considerably larger man who looks like he drinks like a whole bottle of vodka a day. Just like drinks him under the table. And Karen Allen brings so much energy to this. It's so fascinating because like when you said that Spielberg picked her because of Animal House, it made a whole bunch of connections to me, because it doesn't surprise me that he saw Animal House, because 1941 felt like it should have been a John Landis or Harold Ramis movie.
Right.
Because like it's all of them, and it's all these actors, and it's just like it didn't feel right. Like it didn't feel like Spielberg's wheelhouse, trying to make this ridiculously comedy and stuff like that, and also while trying to make a war movie. It just felt weird, but it's so interesting. Like hearing like that's where you saw Karen Allen, just like really liked her in Animal House, and she just bring like her smile, her charm on screen, and
she's such
a tender moment, because like Indy got that shit kicked out of him, honestly, between the plane thing and the chase scene and them on the boat.
Yeah.
It's just like,
Yes.
doesn't it hurt?
Yeah.
Right here. I love that.
That's
That is such
cute,
a great,
yeah.
quiet moment. And they're so perfect together. Mirror. And
But
that
then
whale.
he screams. He lets out this huge scream that you could have heard in bloody across the world. Yeah. And she's like, what? Like, she didn't hear it at all. Like, that's funny.
Oh, and they have such great chemistry in this too. And I think that's one of the bigger letdowns of Temple of Doom is God.
Yeah.
I'll be talking with Heath about this week. I can't stand her. Can't stand her at all.
She is a really annoying character, but I still think she's important to that movie for that reason. Like, I think she had to get on Indy's nerves to drive the plot along, maybe.
Honestly,
Spielberg ended up marrying her anyway.
Yeah.
You're probably happy they didn't have chemistry. So,
do you know the Family Guy joke? Like, there's one little skit where Stewie's short round, and I think it was a cutaway gag, and he's just like, hey, you're only here because you're boinking the director. And I'm just like, oh no. Was it Kate Capshaw or something like that?
Kate Capshaw, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, maybe.
I think that came during the movie, though. I don't think she got the part because of that.
Well, Seth MacFarlane
cast. So.
He'll make the joke anyway.
No. Yeah, that's right.
But like, she's almost at the point where it's like taking a pro wrestling term, X-Pac heat, where it's like you're so good at your job it makes me want to turn you off. Like, there's points where I'm just like, she annoys me so much. I'm just like, I can't stand this. But like, and it's such a big difference between her and Marion. And like, I feel like that's obviously why they bring her back in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
There's so many things I'm gonna have to say when I get around to that one. But like,
I still like Temple of Doom because I think that was the first indie I'd ever seen as a kid. And as a kid, it's more of a kids movie, I think, and especially once they get. I know we're not here to talk about Temple of Doom, but that whole cart ride thing is still one of the greatest scenes.
Yeah,
I love that so
That's
much.
The thing. There's still plenty of things to love about it. I just feel like there's a lot of flaws with it, and it's also like, it's funny because there's those kinds of moments where it's just like this rip-roaring, crazy fun time, and then it's also really dark. Like,
it's hella dark
stuff because like
child slaves,
yeah, right. It's like, we're just gonna have child slaves here, and like the whole bewitching stuff.
Om Shiva.
Oh man, it was funny because I was trying to catch up last weekend, and I watched E.T., Raiders, and Temple of Doom all the same day.
That's a good day.
It's some prime Spielberg, and you get up to the final parts of this film, right? Raiders, and you get to that end, right?
Yep.
That is such a great setup. And the whole, all the Nazis lined up, the TV cameras, and we haven't even talked up to this point about John Williams and his iconic score. Because Raiders March is just chef's kiss.
Yeah.
But why that clicks so strongly is in this moment where those spirits are all flying around and it flies up in front of them, and then it's just dum 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 dum, and it just turns this demonic looking thing. I'm like, oh my god!
Yeah, the pretty ghost it turns into the.
And then I'm trying to remember because in because I think I had these on VHS at some point, but in middle school my mom bought me for my birthday and Christmas the original Star Wars trilogy DVD box set special edition, the Rocky movies, the first 5 of them, and then the Indiana Jones trilogy back when it was still and I had this, and
it still
is. Well, it's gonna have a 5th one now, and it's it was so great because like I would watch them so many times, and I'm like sitting there as like I'm trying to remember the first time I saw this and seeing like the very specific Nazi SS guy's face just melt off his face, and you're just like, what is going on here? And I don't know if it was the being a confirmed Roman Catholic thing, but like God's like, you don't do what I tell you to do. This is what's gonna happen to you, and you're just like, just like that Catholic guilt, just layering it all in.
That makes sense.
It's just like, oh, and just the one guy's face implodes in like that like crumble up way, and then Belloc just explodes.
Wasn't it the head Gestapo guys?
Yeah, I think it was like the head. He was like the head like military guy that seemed to be like giving Belloc orders, and then of course like the creepy guy with like the burn on his hand from the bar shootout, which is great too. But like that moment, and of course the government being the government is just like, they're not getting us, they're making a big mistake, and just like, oh, just forget about it. And then you just see that warehouse, and it's just like, we'll never see that again.
Until
it's just like, oh, took it to Area 51. So I know we kind of just like went through basically the movie, but like, Adam, were there any like main other things that you wanted to bring up in terms of Raiders that really stick out to you?
There's probably a lot, to be honest. But mainly, I think mainly Spielberg's direction. There's some incredible choices in there. There is a lot that I felt, because I watched Lawrence of Arabia recently. There's a lot in there influenced from Lawrence of Arabia, especially those bigger shots in the desert.
Shots.
Yeah, oh man, that's an incredible movie. What I do want to bring up is because I have them in 4K Dolby Vision, and it's easily the best 4K transfer I've ever seen of any movie. It is so pristine. All four of them are pristine. I've seen them all now in the 4K. And with Dolby Atmos sound, what we're talking about, John Williams' score really comes into play so much better. Like, it's much more noticeable and much more effective in the film. It's if you can get it in 4K, you won't be disappointed. Even that scene in The Well of Souls, like you'll probably see on the DVDs or the VHS, you'll see that plexiglass in front of the Cobra that attacks him. They've even removed that from the 4K transfer, so it's really not noticeable at all anymore. I think they went through each frame so meticulously to bring it like a proper, modernize it. It's phenomenal. The one thing I probably want to bring up, which is a funny moment, and I think it actually comes from 1941, which I haven't seen because they mention it in the making of, when he has that like nunchuck weapon and he turns it into the coat hanger.
Yep.
When he's getting his coat put, that is such a great scene. Like, it's so like it build up this tension, and then he just turns into a coat hanger and hands it back to his minion. That's a great scene.
Well, and I think that reinforces this, obviously a much smaller scale, of that point that I brought up earlier about like Spielberg plays with the audience and plays with expectations to build tension, and it might not go somewhere, but it gets you, or it might subvert your expectations and give you some kind of reaction. Because like, I feel like an 80%, 90% of Close Encounters of the Third Kind is Spielberg tricking you into thinking that something like doom is coming. And then I feel like that makes the finale so much more impactful and moving.
Yeah.
And Spielberg does play with you, because you're like, this Nazi guy, something messed up he's about to do with those things. Like, nope, coat hanger.
Yep.
Because I'm too prim and proper to throw my jacket anywhere.
He's very manipulative, like Hitchcock is or was. Makes you feel things when he wants you to feel them. He did back in the day anyway, when he was at his peak, for sure. Yeah. Other than that, yeah, there's probably not. Other than the technical brilliance of it, yeah, I think we've discussed pretty much everything we need to. If we haven't convinced you by now to watch it, then something's wrong with you.
I just feel like it's to the point where it's just like every other action adventure is kind of in the shadow of this. It's just like this is the action adventure,
Mm-hmm.
and everything is like has to, because like the Mummy, like in the late 90s, it's like that picked up that swashbuckling adventuring. And it's like you have elements of that, and like I know that's a remake of another thing, but like
it's very Indiana Jones vibey, the Mummy. Yeah.
O'Connell is like an Indiana Jones type, and he might be a little bit of Han Solo type, a little bit specifically. And I wish that, and this is the kind of thing you don't see these a whole lot anymore, because I feel like action adventure has kind of evolved into very, very, very specific things that we get now. It's like it's dominated by comic book adaptations and straight up action, like a Mission Impossible or a John Wick. They're not adventures, they're like action, but like
they are action. And
I was just gonna say
that sorry,
no, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, action adventure is my favorite genre, and it's because of these movies that it is. But when we're talking about recent ones, that you're right, we don't see them very, very much, if at all. But the two most recent ones that come to mind are the Jumanji sequels, and I really like the Jumanji sequels because of that action adventure element, not because of anything particularly brilliant about them. But it's really, really rewatchable for me. I have this real weird thing where I just like action movies set in a jungle or something somewhere. Like I watched Predator recently, which I'd never seen before, and I was amazed at how much I love Predator, even though it's not really, it's kind of adventure-y, but it's more action.
Yeah.
But it's just one of those vibes I get. I don't know why. Yeah.
Oh, I love Predator.
That's yeah, I really liked it. Surprised how much I liked it, to be honest. I just thought it was going to be an 80s action Schwarzenegger movie, but not at all.
The first third of it is, and that's where it tricks you into thinking that it is.
Yeah.
And then rips that right out from under you. And all those characters had a rude awakening. Because like honestly, the first third of Predator is like the most uber macho piece of cinema ever. Like, Dylan, you son of a bitch.
and then they and all you see is a close up of their biceps.
Oh, I do that. That's how my friend Bobby and I greet each other.
Oh, really?
Just go, it's like, oh, what does the CIA having you pushing too many pencils? Just all of that. Like, that's the thing. It's like, and I love the Jumanji sequels, and obviously they lean more heavily into like the humor, because like they're obviously going for laughs, but like it still has that adventure, and it's like nothing quite like welcome to Jumanji. I'm like, love this guy.
He's brilliant.
Just a little bit of him and everything. Just throw it in there.
Yeah, sprinkle him on top. He's like the sesame seeds on top. He's great.
Yeah. But so there are a lot of thoughts that we had on Raiders of the Lost Ark. And like seriously, if you haven't seen it, go right now. What are you doing?
Yeah. What are you doing? What are you doing with your life?
Now, Adam, what are some recommendations you might have for our lovely audience?
Look, I think the thing I probably want people to know about the most, which a lot of people may have already seen it, is Love, Death and Robots. I'm going to recommend the season 3 on Netflix. Watched a lot of movies lately, but nothing over the top that I would want to bring up. More than Love, Death and Robots, I think. There's 2, 9 episodes. There's 3 in particular, maybe 4 in particular that are specifically brilliant. Have you watched them? Have you watched them this year?
Fincher.
Yes. Yeah. When I was watching Bad Traveling, like I was looking through IMDb as I do, like who's directed this one, and like Fincher, of course, like because I know he produces it with Tim, what's his face,
Tim
with Deadpool.
Miller. Yeah.
Miller. I was gonna say Tim Meadows for some. I don't know who that is. Tim Miller.
Tim Meadows is from like SNL.
He's the SNL guy, right? Yeah.
He's the love man.
yeah. But that episode, Bad Traveling, is phenomenal. But there's also the mini zombie one, like the overhead stop motion of the fast forward zombies is.
I was watching somebody playing Age of Empires, or
it's like The Sims. It's like
The Sims. Exactly. Yeah. Zombie Sims.
Like if the zombies took over The Sims. Then there's Mason's Rats with the Scottish guy on the farm with the rats who fight back, and I loved that. It was just funny to me because of that Scottish charm and his accent.
Oh, wasn't
I love the Scottish accent.
Oh, wasn't that blanking? Was that Craig Ferguson
doing the voice? You know what? I should have looked that up. Why didn't I look that up? I don't know.
Because I'm pretty sure I looked that up, and I'm just like, what?
Right now. But while I do that, the very last episode, Jabaro, is one of the most, probably the second best thing on film, on screen this year. I think it's the way it's presented. To me, I think my media reviewer was like a Robert Eggers doing animation. Really just blew me away. The way it looks, the way it feels. There's no dialogue. It's just music, and it's all hand drawn. Apparently, I heard like the Banshee in particular. She's just all hand drawn, all her action. And when you watch it, and if you see that it's hand drawn, it kind of is more mind blowing than it already was. Yeah, really, really phenomenal.
That was trippy as hell. Watching that, I'm just like,
Mason's Rats. Who did the voice?
It was Craig Ferguson. I love Craig Ferguson.
Yeah, you're right. It is Craig Ferguson.
And Dan Stevens was the other character too.
You're on mute. You on mute? Okay, sorry about that.
But yeah, it's Craig Ferguson, and then Dan Stevens is the other character in that episode too. I love that one. That was a lot of fun. And that was one of the shorter ones too, Mason's Rats. It was just like, bam, get to the point. There were some other, like, I feel like some of them were a little, like, I don't want to say half-baked, but, like, they had interesting concepts, but, like, I don't know if they, like, fully felt fleshed out. And then, like, Kill Team Kill is just, like, full-blown, like, action.
That's Animated Predator, I thought. Like, it was, even had a couple of funny parts. And they kept calling it a honey badger, kept cracking me up.
Yeah.
The one that I thought would be a great feature was Swarm, because that's the one where basically the swarm in space and they're kind of floating through. I think it's Anthony Mackie doing the voice there. I think it's Anthony Mackie.
So we have Rosario Dawson and Jason George. I'm not sure who Jason George is, but like I did recognize Rosario Dawson like that.
Yes. I don't know why I thought Anthony Mackie. But yeah, I'd love to see that as a feature length, because it's such a great world they've built there, especially with the alien species that drop him off to go and investigate because we're benevolent. We're trying to just learn. But then when he gets in and tries, we're trying to turn these into slaves type of thing. Like it's really fascinating. I would love to have seen that, a lot more of that.
Also, I think I enjoyed Kill Team Kill even more because it had Joel McHale and Seth Green in it. Like that was just a fun
Green one. I didn't pick up. Yeah.
That was just like a straight fun one. But yeah, Bad Traveling, that was something else. And I remember sitting there and watching, I'm like, who directed this? And then I looked it up and I was like, oh, duh. It's Fincher.
Yeah.
That makes sense. But yeah, I would highly, if you haven't watched any of it, it's just such a great thing to dive into, is Love, Death, and Robots. And there's 3 seasons of it now, so we have plenty of content.
Yeah.
To be honest,
such an easy watch.
10 to 22 minutes long, probably each.
Yeah, even between 5 between 5 and 20. You could watch all 3 seasons in a day if you had the time. Like it's an easy watch and a fun watch. Yeah. I think I watched season 1 a few times, actually.
I think I rewatched a couple of them. But the first season has like 14 or 15 or something like that. They dumped like a whole bunch of
17.
17. Like that
17,
first season. And then this one had 9. I feel like the second season was the shortest.
Season 2 had 9 as well.
Okay.
And I didn't like season 2 as much, but maybe I need to watch that again, actually.
Having trouble remembering a lot of them in season 2.
I think the most popular one was I think the most popular one in season 2 was the Christmas one.
Oh,
this Christmas one with like an evil Saint Nick or something.
Something crazy like that.
Yeah.
So my recommendations, I have 2 films that I wanted to mention. One was Crimes of the Future. So all you Cronenberg fans out there, this is some old-fashioned Cronenberg coming back with new fashion Viggo Mortensen. It's like bringing both sides of his career together. Because this is his 4th film with Viggo Mortensen at this point as his lead. And because he had History of Violence, Eastern Promises, and then he was Sigmund Freud in A Dangerous Method. And this is disturbing body horror about in the future where humans don't feel anything anymore and wind up doing compulsive surgeries to themselves. And that's the new pleasure dome here. Oh, there's some parts where I'm just like, this is not fun to watch, especially somebody who hates needles and sharp objects. But like, there's so much about this film, so much to say. And Cronenberg definitely went all out. And I definitely think it's worth checking out. And then one I really wanted to recommend and also shamelessly plug my soon-to-be posting podcast that I'm doing with Rowan from SiftPop called Rowan in the Wasteland. We're going to be doing an episode, It's Such a Beautiful Day, which is a 62-minute animated film, all hand-drawn, from Don Hertzfeldt. And it's about Bill, who struggles to put together his shattered psyche in this film, which basically is just like this guy named Bill just going through life. Like, just to put it in like a nutshell, like the opening scene is like, and they're all like little hand drawn, like little circles, little bodies, and like stick figure arms and legs, all these characters. The opening shot of this movie is Bill is walking by somebody he recognizes. And in his awkwardness of trying to say hello and how you doing, realizes, oh, wait, did he hear me? Should I say this? And by the time he realizes it, they have passed each other and they'll never remember this interaction again. And it's like all these little weird, awkward just interactions in Bill's life. And like this film is able to capture a lot of existential feelings and the awkwardness of life and depression in such an interesting way. This is one of the boldest animated films I've ever seen, and definitely worth it. This is not for kids though.
Right.
This is definitely not a kids animated movie. Definitely for adults. And honestly, you might not want to be in a down mood when you watch this because it might be triggering a little bit.
Right.
And it's such a fascinating experiment too that just pays off in so many strange ways. I don't know about anywhere else, but I know in the US the only place to find this is to rent it on Vimeo. So like Vimeo is like a video playing application.
Yeah.
And you can rent things from it. And it's like $5 to rent and it's like $10 to buy. Honestly, at this point, I should have just bought it because I've rented it twice in the past year and a half. So I'm like, and you can't buy a physical copy anywhere. And I'm just like, ugh. At this point, I should have just, honestly, earlier today, I should have just spent the $10 and just got it. And then I can watch it whenever the hell I want.
What's it called again?
It's called It's Such a Beautiful Day.
Okay.
It's weird. I'm warning you all out there. It's a weird movie, but it is such a bold piece of art. And I don't know, it definitely clicked with my sense of humor. So I appreciated it. And you all could wait a little bit. Some point this summer, it'll be coming to a podcast near you called Rowan in the Wasteland. So there you go. But those are our recommendations, and I think that's a wrap for this week on Welcome to the Wasteland. So, Adam, thank you so much for coming on again.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for having me, as always.
And you'll definitely be back on again. But thank all of you out there for always tuning in and supporting your Wasteland Reviewer.